There it
Oh,
is.
and it
It's official
changed to
live.
live.
I
Look at
saw it.
there.
So it's like official now.
Now everything we say, we have to
It's
be careful
recorded in
about.
history. You can't
Yes.
take it back. There's no takesies backsies. All right. Well, let's just get into it then. I am here tonight with Alicja Colon. She is a paper illustrator, photographer, and owner of Thrice Studio. And
Hey.
tonight we're going to be going over her process. We're going to show what she does, how she does it, how she got into the world of paper craft, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So, Alicja, if you want to do a more formal introduction than that, you can take it away.
Oh man, well, thank you so much for having me. It's so cool what you guys are doing and building up there in New Jersey. And I've never like came across. I have a bug that decided to join me. Never came across a community that like. And it's built this kind of like online community in, around you guys. And then at the same time, you guys do things like tangibly together as well. So
Yeah.
I love watching, like sitting back and watching you guys build this. And now they got to be a part of it is kind of cool. So
I'm glad we have at least one fan out there.
Yes, in Georgia. So
yeah, there you go. See, we're international now.
Wait a minute. Is that how it works?
National, at least national. So, briefly, could you tell us what you do? Like, who is Alicja Colon?
Okay, so I am a mother of 3, and I've been married for 15 years. So there's that. Thank you. I was classically trained as a graphic designer, specifically in print, worked in a nonprofit for a number of years and discovered photography. Then from there, quickly jumped ship and was like, peace art boards. And kind of really dove in deeply in the world of photography for about 10 years. And then from there was like, man, I really want to make sets, but I don't have a studio space. I don't have something that's big. And on top of that, I don't like photographing people. So what do I have left? I'm like, still life. Okay, well, I don't, but I want to do more than that. So that's when I started getting into like paper stuff. And then once I started getting into paper crafting, I realized that there's a couple of different paper styles out there. There's flat, and then there's also like structural, like 3D. And because I love light, because photography quite literally means painting with light, the like structural paper craft was way more just an appealing direction for me because the light really was able to play with it and move around it and add to the narrative. So I make things out of paper and I photograph them for people.
Awesome. So, say, what do you got?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, meh. A lot of times people are like, okay, you do these cool, like paper craft. Like what do people use them for? And so far, I've been doing this for 6 months, which is really exciting. I've been doing it for 2 years, freelance for 6 months. And so far I have done editorial work. So Temple University, which is actually up in that direction where you guys are. I've done some work for their magazine, which is really neat. Doing props for videos. So it's like sometimes they'll want like a specific kind of feel, like paper. So I do paper props for videos. Have done a lot of like header images for like websites, like Epicurrents, that just kind of went out with Dan Petty. Like that was a big one that I did a lot of the paperwork for. And then my latest project is for, his name is Max. He's the creator of Cards Against Humanity.
Wow.
I'm making some visual assets for his website too. So, and they're illustrations, meaning like they look kind of like they're whimsical. They have a concept behind them, but it's all made out of paper and it's photographed. So it has a really unique feel to it.
So what drew you into like using paper as like your main medium when you're doing this kind of stuff?
Good question. I liked paper because I think it felt more graphical. It's flat, I mean, but at the same time, there's still depth because of light. So you can still have highlights, you can still have shadows, you can still have like a texture to it. You can have depth, right? Because you can have things later on top of things. But I love how flat it is because it's a color. It's not like the paper is going to be ombre. I mean, I guess I could if I really wanted to, but it's still very flat. So it still comes across very graphical. So I think it's combining everything from my graphic design days to my photography. It's just putting it all together.
That's awesome. And like, what when you're doing these, like you said, you would do like website banners or anything like that. Like, what's the scale of the models that you work on? Are they like small, like fit in a shoebox? Are they big, like could they fit on your desk?
Oh my goodness! Can I break away to go get some really quick
Absolutely.
so
I
you
would
can
love
see?
if you go grab some things.
Okay, cool. 1 minute.
I'll sit here in a van for everyone. A little peek at her office over there. It's very nice. Ooh.
Okay, so this is one of the characters from Cards Against Humanity guy, Max. Oh, I keep calling him that, but Max. So these were actually designed by Meg Lewis of Darn Good of Ghostly Ferns. And so she's the collaborator. So she designed the characters. And then from there, I'm the one who like makes them. And so this is probably one of the largest ones that I've ever made. Generally speaking,
Okay.
they're either like half the size of this because my paper roll is only 56 inches wide. So that's like, I don't know, 4.5 feet. I don't know.
A lot of math. I can't handle it.
Yeah. And generally speaking, I don't cut any of the stuff by hand. I have a Cricut that cuts all my SVGs for me, which I make in Illustrator. And so I am constricted to a 12 by 24 sheet. So that means like the widest I can ever have anything is either 12 inches or 24 inches, depending on where
Do you ever do you ever find any challenges with working within that limitation?
Yes, because like for instance, I'm like this right here, the boundary, the circumference of this was way longer than 24. So it ended up being I had to like do some seams.
Yeah.
You know, so then at that juncture, that's where Photoshop comes in because you just have to clean them up. But yeah, sometimes you do have to kind of like piece things together and figure out like, okay, where do I hide these seams? Which is
so you have to get like crafty sometimes.
You do. And that's something that like when I get up there next month, whenever we're making the paper craft together, that's something that like all the participants are going to think about is like, all right, where do we put the seams so we don't see them?
So obviously that comes into play when you're doing the photography for the final pieces too. Are you like hiding a lot of mistakes in the way that you set up your things? Or are you like a perfectionist?
No, I'm definitely not a perfectionist because perfection is the enemy of done.
Well put.
So no, I generally try to get at least 3/4 of the view like completely done. Because then at that juncture, it's just a lot easier. So I can take side shots if I wanted to. But I get it as close to what I need to be. And then retouching goes all the way. So, I mean, I've been with Photoshop like so long to the point where like it was a new thing for layers to come into play. Like, I don't remember. It tells you my age. But I just remember like, we're like, like it was wild.
So you're working like with the OG Photoshop,
dude. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. So, so I know Photoshop quite well.
Have you? I know there's like a lot of people in the industry that are complaining about the new versions of Photoshop. Have you had any trouble with that?
Oh my goodness!
Or do you specifically stick with like an older version because it works better?
No, because my computer. I keep upgrading the computer, so no. I had to, you know what? It's one of those things where it's like the holding down the shift while you have, you proportionally, you like, constrain
the thing every designer has done for their entire life in that program.
Yeah, and now it's like you don't hold down the shift, you just drag, and then like, okay, all right, this is good. I just had to remind myself, this is good. This is better. It makes more sense. I just got to get used to it. So it's unlearning some things. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been pleasantly pleased with all of the enhancements that they have made. I still don't understand why I can edit video in Photoshop like that. That seems like they're really trying to put a lot of stuff in there. But I'm not going to lie, it has come in handy a time or two for like some little gifts that I wanted to make, and I just needed to. I made them in like I made them in like a movie clip, and then I wanted to like just tweak the curves, and I just know that better than Premiere, so I was able to like do it in Photoshop, and I was like, that was rad. So I'm not hating it, but at the same time, I'm like, man, that's a big piece of software.
I think you might be one of the few people who's being nice to Photoshop right now.
Okay, I can't see. Here's the thing: I can't be mean to anybody. So I mean,
okay, that's good. That's a good personality trait to have. Can't be mean to people.
It just hurts my heart. Like, why would you want to have crunchy all over you? Like, that's just okay.
So when you're working, do you have like a preference for the type of paper you use, or are you all over the place? There's a certain brand you use, anything like that?
Yes, they should buy stock in me or be a brand ambassador or something. So I really like Recollections. They are my favorite. And there's a lot of different things about paper, which is ridiculous. I mean, you have like different textures, right? You can have linen laid paper, and which is from the 90s, you know, when you would put your like resume on that, like, okay, you were born after the 90s, I get it, whatever. But then there were some papers just have a texture to it, like a craft paper, but it's not really. Some paper actually is not solid core paper. So like you cut the paper and you can see white. So it's like color on both sides. It's kind of like the Moo business cards, but reverse. That's not good because, I mean, unless that's an aesthetic you're going for, it's like whenever I'm making this guy, like I don't want you to see like, you know, white lines everywhere. Like that's not. So you have to make sure that it's solid. Dyed throughout the whole entire thing. And then secondly, there's two different weights that I use often. There's like a 60-pound and then there's a 125-pound. So that Disneyland sign behind me, which I would have to get it closer. But for like structural details, it's really good to have like that meaty paper, that 125-pound paper. But for some of the things here that you want to do around the edge, 65-pound is like really good. So it's just understanding.
Can you name drop that one more time? Was it Recollections?
Recollections.
Awesome. Cool. So do you have like a general process you go through when you're doing any of these projects, any of these little paper craft illustrations, anything like that? Is there a process that you follow, or does it kind of change depending on what the project is or what the end goal is?
The process I would actually say is relatively the same. It just depends upon the depth of each phase, depending upon if I have a collaborator or not. So I could probably pull up some process. Can I share?
Yeah, if you can, let's see.
I'm just going to share everything. There you go. Now you see yourself twice. Hello. Okay, cool.
Oh, cool.
So this
I love seeing other like designers' artboards. It's kind of like a peek into their secret life.
Right.
How their mind works.
I have no idea okay, so let me get in really close here. All right, so this is the first step of every single project that I ever like get into. So whenever Meg came to me and she's like, hey, I really want you to create these visual assets for Max. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. I need the like copy overlay, which is what this is. I need to know the ratio and I need to know where the copy is going to be. And then from there, if there's any like brand guidelines or whatnot, you need to give those to me as well. So my guidelines here were color and then also shapes. So from there, I just do a black and white sketch as to, and this obviously has color because I already knew what the colors were, but sketch as to what I think those ideas were going to be. So here the motif, there's three different motifs we decided to go with. Monochromatic with pops of white was one. Second, we would have light emanating from something, always kind of bouncing onto the face of the thing. And then thirdly, we wanted to go with like 90s era like appliances. So it's like, all right, what is a 90s dining room table? Like light, I have no idea. And then from there, we get into like vectoring. So like here, you look here, and there's not a lot of detail, right? Like that's just like, that's a really badly drawn cassette tape, like, but then hopefully I'm not making people sick. But then I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out actually what does that cassette tape look like from a color, or like the headphones, like what's going to be on the headphones or the pen or things like that. So then that's the second phase, is that I just vectorize everything. And then from there, once that's done, this is actually not, well, it is done. Once that's done, I start templatizing everything.
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah. So then from here, like I have to go in, figure out what is the size of all of these lines, curved lines, get shutter tabs straight, get these like, I don't know, regular tabs. I don't know. Have to figure out where everything is going to get scored. So that's where this pink line is here, because my machine scores it for me too as well. And I have to do that throughout the whole entire thing. So right now I'm actually in the middle of making the TV.
Oh, that's so neat.
So you can kind of see that the TV right now is, the front is made out of 3 pieces, but I have to get the speaker lines in there and stuff. So, and this is the bowl. And then I have a ruffled chip that you can't really tell, but that's a ruffled chip. So then from there, I export them. And then I cut them. And how do I stop sharing now? That's cool. You can see yourself. Did it stop? No.
I still see me. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay, cool.
Got you.
And so then from there, we make them. So for this project, this is a fairly big project. So I have a friend of mine who's contracting with me, who makes sense of how I build it out. So I cut those and she makes it while I'm templating the next one. And then the next process after that will be the photography and then the retouching.
Awesome. So how much, you said you do a lot of work in Photoshop. How much retouching do you do? Is like a crazy before after? Is it like you try to get as close as possible with the models themselves? Or is like Photoshop your godsend?
Photoshop is my godsend for sure. So like, I wish I had the before and after this one particular thing. So I worked at Focus Lab before I moved over to freelance. And I remember there's this one header that I wanted to create. It was a blog post that I wrote, so I was a little bit invested in it. And it was about custom photography. And so I had this camera, and I had the camera like made out of all of these different parts coming together, different colors. If you look at the real thing, it is so oddly mismatched and misshapen and not together whatsoever. It's like, how does this thing even like work? But then you look at the final piece and it looks like it's perfectly, made. And so anyway, I wish I had the before and after of that, because that would be a beautiful understanding of like before and after. But yeah, I get it close enough. For video, it does take me double the amount of time though, because there is no saving grace of Photoshop in those particular things. But yeah, I'm wondering if I could pull up a quick like before and after.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Curious to see like how different it is. Like, it's like, could you see like with the naked eye a bunch of like paper creases and tape and stuff like that?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this. Again, I'm going to do it like, all right. So this is the final Disney sign. So you guys have seen this if you follow me on Twitter.
Everyone should be following you on Twitter now.
So like, what I really like to do in Twitter is that I like post a thread. Oh, come on, just like open. Okay, cool. So I like to post a thread of like, okay, I'm making this, and then kind of like chronologic, like chronoling. There you go. The creation of it or whatever. So I like thread it out. Okay, so
this is very well organized. This is nothing like how I am.
Oh man! Oh darn it, Betsy. That's the fixed one. I'm going to show you here. I'm going to show you the purple one, because the purple one was a different one that I was going to do to show you. All right, yeah. So,
I love it.
So the purple one was an alternative that we were kind of picking, like, did we want to go blue or whatnot? But like, you can see like there's absolutely no light here. And I had to like fix that here. There's it gets wonky, so I had to reconstruct it. The lighting was crazy. I had to like make things a little shifted. Obviously there's a color shift. And then I ended up just getting these words from the vector piece, because so my buddy Raji makes these. He drew it, which his drawn one is like over here. Yeah, so that's the one he drew. So he draws that, and then I just pretty much took the vector, and I have some actions I made in Photoshop that will help me blend things to look a little less. Ooh, what did I do now? I don't know what I did. Anyway, I stopped sharing. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, so I have an action in Photoshop that I use to help things blend into paper, because paper definitely has a specific grit to it. So if you go back in Photoshop and you're like digitally painting, and you can definitely see like that's not right. So I have an action that I have created to help me blend those elements together.
That's cool. So I know there's like a few times I've tried my hand at like building little paper models, and I don't have finger dexterity or something, because I always had like a huge pain doing these things. So is there any like challenges that you've had that like come with working with such like intricate little sculptures that you make out of paper?
Math.
Yeah, not my strong suit.
No, I think I was naive thinking that I didn't have to have precise measurements. Literally, I think when I went freelance, I finally was like, okay, I really have to work to like 100ths of an inch. Like I have to, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like I have to figure out how to read a ruler. And praise God that there are these beautiful people out there that really like to make free calculators for people. So I can just put the diameter of something and it'll tell me what the circumference is, or like cones. I couldn't figure out how to make a cone for the life of me. And there's this calculator out there that you can just say like, I want the top to be this and the bottom to be this. And like, I want the height.
So smart.
And then it makes it for you. And so all I have to do is drag that into Illustrator then, and with a couple of clicks, it turns into an SVG. So it's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So has measurement or measuring anything, or are there any like roadblocks that almost like hindered a project from getting done? It looks like you've seen some things.
I see dead people, Mike. That's what it is. No, when I first started, oh man, I have this dribble. Let me see if I can find this post really quick. So whenever I first started doing this paper illustration stuff, Focus Lab, the UI team was like, man, we would really love to use your papercraft stuff to illustrate a series of UI articles that we're going to write about like just why UI discovery is really important, some of the processes and like whatnot. And so they wrote an article, and the first article was about like UI discovery is very much like an iceberg, where you see the product up here, but really there's a lot of stuff underneath that sea level, right? That like you need to you need to kind of unearth. All right, so once again, I'm going to hijack the share screen.
It's fine. My face is going to go big for a second.
Okay. So yeah, and it's loading. So I tried my hardest to make an iceberg, which is on the left-hand side. And it took me 20 hours to make that, which is really ridiculous. This is when I didn't really understand. Like, I thought I could make a triangle. Like, I didn't even like right angles and like, what are the other kind of angles there are?
Acute angles?
Acute.
I know that's an angle.
I didn't. Yeah. So like geometry completely escaped me. It was like, it was not a thing. In my brain, and I just hacked that together. So then 2 years after that, Dan comes to me of Epicurrence, and Dan's like, I want a mountain. my mind just goes back to this iceberg, and and I'm like, sure, I can do it. And I'm like scared out of my mind.
You're getting like flashback horror stories of the iceberg.
I'm just like, like really history already tells me that I'm going to suck at this. So I don't know if I want to try. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation of like positive self-talk, which was a huge thing that happened actually between the left and the right, was changing my inner dialogue. But what happened is that I realized that there's this software called Blender, which is a free 3D modeling. Stop sharing. Is a free 3D modeling thing. And then from there, I realized, no, you're there. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
And then what I learned is that you could actually export that as a certain kind of file and put it into this program called like Unfold or Unfolder or something that will spit out a paper template.
Whoa.
And I'm like, what? So again, that mountain still took 20 hours, but because I had to learn frickin' Blender in order to use it. But it was amazing. And yeah, so all of that to say, there are programs out there to help you with the math, just in case. Good.
I would need that for sure.
Yeah.
So with all the work that you did and talking about these programs, is this something you kind of had to learn as you went? Like obviously there's no like college course on papercraft, I don't think, but it's something like you had to just like, sink your teeth into it and just kind of figure out how it works like on the fly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like working with Focus Lab, one of the biggest things that like, so I had two younger colleagues within the same department of mine. And one of the things that like we would be collaborating and we would kind of be brainstorming about the project. And one of the things that we would proverbially slap each other's wrist is whenever during the brainstorm session, we would be like, how am I going to make that? We want to do this and that and the other. And then like the person that's sitting in reality is like, how are you going to make that? And we would like proverbially like slap each other on the wrist. I'm like, no, shut up. Like that's no room for that here. And so that's one of the things that like now working on my own, it's like, I have to constantly be like, I'm not going to worry about how I'm going to make that. Like, so for instance, if you remember when I first shared Max's work, there was a lava lamp in there, with a floating question mark. I'm like, I'm pitching it. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but it's going to be done because I know if I don't give up long enough, I'll figure it out. Because
that's fantastic advice.
Yeah. So it's like, and that's something that like, that's again, kind of going into the real talk or the self-talk, the inner dialogue. I mean, I've read so many books and it's amazing that I haven't suggested one yet, but really about just your inner dialogue and realizing that like, no, you can, it's all about just how soon are you going to give up? And it's like, well, if I just choose not to, that's just not an option.
No, especially with this kind of work, it's important to have that outlook because I imagine there's many projects where you start it and you pitch it and you're like, all right, now you have to figure out how you're actually going to do that.
100%. I actually have one.
Oh, this sounds like it's going to be good.
I have one. Oh man, I do. I have one, and it's an amazing. I'm like so jazzed about it because it's a concept that I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time. It involves video. I literally have no idea how it's going to be pulled off, but the client is like super jazzed on it now. So I'm like, great, now I have to.
You have to. You've locked yourself in.
Yes, which is like great motivation because like on a personal project, honestly, it's like, I don't know if I would be willing to try that big. So yeah, I understand that some people are probably like, that's really risky to risk that on a client. But I've not been in a place yet where it has failed.
So would you almost say that like the fear of failure is almost driving you to make sure you get it done the right way?
I think fear of failure is a drive for me to get it done the right way. I wouldn't say that. I would say the fear of failure drives me to grow. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Because before, I had a couple of opportunities before, and the fear of failure drove me to paralysis. And I didn't do anything. I pulled out of projects. I told people no. I never explored or experimented or anything like that. But instead, what I did after a lot of personal growth, now I see like, oh, that's what I'm afraid of. That's an indicator of where I need to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so this project, I am scared of the potential, but the thing is that like, I know that it's going to have to work because I have no other choice.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't. Yeah. Well,
you have to figure it out.
We will have to. And it requires 32 paper products that I have to make.
Wow.
So it's like, not only does it have to work, but it's on a pretty large scale.
Mm-hmm.
So
we have a question from Will. He said he saw a post from Dan Petty about a video project that includes you. Mm-hmm. Can you share anything about that?
Okay, yeah. So Dan has been supported by Envision to make short documentaries on some creatives out in the industry, out in the field. Mm-hmm. So towards Christmas, actually, it was around Christmas of last year, he made the drive down to my garage studio and pretty much recorded me working and to share a little bit of my story. So each of these stories is unique to that person. So I know he's done Matt D. Smith. He did me, and he's done a few other people too. And I don't know all of them. But yeah, I know I'm really excited about sharing a little bit of my story. We do kind of go a little personal in there, sharing like some learning disabilities that one of my girls have, and one of the driving forces of why I jumped ship from agency to freelancing and stuff like that. So mm-hmm. I hope it's something that people can resonate with. But at the same time, they laugh at too, because Dan's funny. He's a funny guy. So he puts comedy in there quite naturally. So it's nice.
All right. I have a 2-pronged question for you. Answer it how you would like.
Okay.
Easiest client and hardest client you've ever had.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. The hardest client would always be myself.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, the hardest
client. Everyone's their hardest client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max would be my easiest client. This dude, and he's just amazing. So I've never met him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is a collaboration with Meg. So I've done all the contractual stuff with him via email, but I've never met him. But he's super jazzed over all of the work. And he just trusts. And the thing is that there's actually no timeline either as to when to get it done. I just want to get paid, so I'm pushing. That
can be like a double-edged sword sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So he's amazing. But I think the hardest client is really right now is I love Raji. But I would have to say like it's me and Raji's the project that we're doing for Disneyland, and they are not commissioned, and this is not getting paid with it whatsoever. But he and I both have a dream. His dream is to be part of the Wonderground Gallery. My dream is to just work with Disney. And so we're like, well, if we combine our skills, we feel like we would have a better chance of both achieving our dreams. Mm-hmm. And so when you have such an aspiration as to that, and then you're working with a partner, I want to make sure that I don't fail him, right, and that we're like moving forward. So like he'll have an idea. And so anyway, so it's kind of like trying not to squash his idea, but at the same time, like maybe move it over here. Or he's the same way with me, going like, you know what, from a paper perspective, I don't know if that's going to work out. And he's like, can figure it out, because it's really important.
So do you work with collaborators on every project?
I work with collaborators I would say if the client counts as a collaborator, then yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But for the most part, I do work a lot with designers because it's normally the designers that are doing the websites, right? They're normally doing the brands, and so then at that juncture, it's not the client who hires me directly, or they do hire me directly, but at the request of a designer.
Okay.
So generally, I always have another creative in there with me, getting dirty. So it's really nice. So
you touched a bit on this before, but is there anything unique to papercraft, like any tools or supplies that is unique to this craft that you found out over the course of your career?
the amount of tweezers I use is ridiculous.
I was about to say, like, for what, but I imagine you're placing things very delicately with tweezers.
Yeah. So the learning like all the different kinds of tweezers there are, reverse
There's more than one kind? What?
Right?
You're blowing my mind right now.
I know, right? So there's some tweezers that have like flat edges to them, which are really nice. So they're like little tiny spatulas, which is great. But then you have like the little tiny needle nose, right? So like if you prick yourself, you draw blood. And then there's like reverse clamp ones, which are like they're clamps. So they're reverse tweezers. So, instead of holding pressure, it's resting on the pressure. So that's nice to be able to kind of set it. But the amount of knowledge that I have about glue is pretty robust, and adhesives in general.
Do you have a favorite glue?
I do have a favorite glue.
You want to share that?
And I have used it all. Okay, so I love glue a lot. I could talk about adhesives for a while, but there's this one glue by Recollections. Again, going back to Recollections.
Welcome, do it.
And this glue is specifically made for porous and non-porous things to adhere together. So like if you had like a piece of plastic and like a paper, like this would be a really good thing to put it together, or metal and plastic or whatever. But what I have found is that it's also really great with paper. So like glue will ripple your paper if you do too much of it.
Yeah,
you guys remember that from kindergarten?
Has had problems with that before.
Right.
Myself included.
Yeah. So Recollections, this particular glue, especially with paper, it's so thin that it doesn't necessarily do that, which is amazing. And then it also glides out really easily. And on top of that, the bottle is small enough to where it's easy to get out. I understand. Okay. There are these things that you just have to know. But there's other ones that, like this one I use a lot. This is Eileen's Fast Grab Tacky Glue. So this is a glue that literally you put it on and it kind of sticks. So you have to be very certain. But when you're doing things like this and you kind of just need to keep going, it's nice to have that steadfastness. But then on top of that, like, don't overlook your double-sided tape, friends. Like,
I love double-sided tape. I've almost exclusively started using that as opposed to glue.
Yeah. Double-sided tape. And it comes in so many different like widths, like a 1/4 of an inch too. And like that's the way to go. Like 9 times out of 10, if you can get away with it, like that's the one that we would prefer. But it's really difficult with grounded corners, as you can imagine.
So other than physical tools, is there any other programs that you use other than Photoshop and whatever the measuring ones you'd use before?
Yeah. So I use Illustrator to make all of my SVGs. So that's the one that I was showing earlier. So Illustrator. And then I use Blender and Unfold sometimes in order to, if I have like a 3D thing that I need to create and then translate that into a paper template, Unfold does that for me. Cricut has a browser, which is like what you use to like cut everything. And then Capture One. So like I photograph everything. So Capture One allows me, it's like the Lightroom, but different. And what I like about it is that I can have the PNG uploaded so I'm tethered, right? So tethered means that I'm shooting and it goes straight to my laptop so I can see it huge. Right. I'm not just looking at it like that. And so when I'm shooting it, I also have my PNG overlay. So whenever I'm like live shooting, I can see exactly where the light is hitting, exactly where the copy is. So I have everything like perfect in camera. So there's no like, is this scale right? Is this composition right? Like,
yeah,
there's none of that. It's definitely right because you have it. So I use Capture One and then Photoshop for all the retouching. So yeah.
Cool.
It's definitely a lot of steps and a lot of different programs.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, like one image. A
little bit all over the place.
Yeah, and then like the sketching is like Procreate. But the
so you use an iPad as well?
Yep, yeah. So like all the sketching is done with Procreate just because I like to sit on my couch.
Don't we all?
So, but yeah, an image could easily take, like I've spent 20 something hours already. And that doesn't even include Melanie's, my contractor's hours, which she's probably up to like 10 now. So like 30 hours on Max's stuff yet. And it's not even, they're not even like, we still have 2 left to do and we haven't even photographed them or retouched them. So that it's going to definitely be a little over a 40-hour project.
Wow. Is that like, would you say that's like an average for a project like this, 40 hours?
I would say, yeah, this one's actually larger. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm still kind of getting used to how much time it takes in order to do some of these projects. This little dude took 10 hours to build.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he took 10 hours to build, to photograph, and to retouch. So just that one image took 10 hours.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it's definitely time consuming. And it's one of those things where I keep wondering if maybe 3D rendering would be the better route, but
oh no, you lose all the tactile nature of
I know. I'd love it. So no, if anything, I'm actually I'm looking into getting a 3D printer, a resin 3D printer. Yeah, so that's going to be the next evolution.
Do you feel like that would open like a whole new avenue of like job opportunities by having that?
Oh my gosh. And I don't necessarily know if like job opportunities, but I do think that there's these, like, so I had to make the lava. Okay. So the lava lamp, that would have been, because there's clear resin, obviously, that would have been amazing to be able just to add that, to be able to print that and to fuse that into my things, you know, like just be able to make these clear, translucent things that I just can't make out of paper, you know, but still have that tactile likeness. Like it would be phenomenal. So, but I found a glass bottle, so we're using that.
Yeah, that works too.
It does. It works.
So what are some of your major sources of inspiration? Like other artists or designers, you've like places or things, like where do you go and who do you look at for inspiration?
Okay, that's a good question. I love Tommy Perez. I don't know if you guys know him, but he is a paper crafter and then also a stop motion animator out in San Francisco. He has done a lot of stuff in the beauty space and then movies like Nickelodeon and a lot of stuff with Marvel too. So he's dope. Just it's amazing. I find a lot of inspiration actually more in illustration than photographers. So yeah, like I just love seeing how people illustrate light, because it's really neat, because it's like on one hand they understand it, but on the second hand they don't, like not as well as like, you know, like someone who has studied light for 10 years from a photography standpoint and light modifiers, and they understand, you know what I mean? But it's really cool to see how they see it and how they illustrate it, and this colors too, like, and then and how illustrators can like just take an idea and abstract it, or they find 2 things and they marry them together. Like, I'm just enamored by illustrators. And so no, I don't have any specific illustrators, which is probably horrible to say. I just know that I look at them all. So
you gotta keep yourself rounded out. You know, you gotta draw all your inspiration from one spot.
Yeah. So yeah, my Instagram is like really nothing but illustrators. that I follow. And then I go to Dribble a lot to look at like things. So.
All right, you got another question from Will. He says, Joe has an equipment question. Do you use Glowforge?
The Glowforge. No, I want to. Laser cutting would be amazing, or engraving too. No, Glowforge is quite expensive. I use the Cricut. So there's 2 on the market right now. There might be more, but the 2 that I'm familiar with, one is Cricut and one is Silhouette. I started with like the Cricut Explorer, which is like the cheapest one that you can get, which is like $200 or something. Now I have the Maker, which can cut fabric. It has a knife, like an angled knife,
nice.
like, and it can score for me and all of that stuff. But no, I wanted the Glowforge. But then once I just wrapped my heart around going like, no, I think 3D printing would be the better way to go about it. So I'm saving up my pennies.
Hey, one day you'll have it. You'll have it.
Yeah, one day.
So what does a usual day in your studio look like? Do you have like consistent workflow, or is it kind of all over the place depending on what the project is?
That's actually really cool and question, because I'm reading Deep Work right now. Have you ever read that book?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Deep Work is an amazing book by Cal Newport. That's with a C. And it talks about how like the deeper we go in our work, the more focused and less distracted we are, the actually more satisfaction that we get out of it. And he cites it from a neurological standpoint, a psychological, and also a philosophical. But like there's a lot of like research that goes into his arguments as well, and a lot of case studies. But anyway, all of that to say, some of the principles that he talked about, I'm trying to incorporate. So one of them is called batching. So it's like trying to batch a lot of similar tasks together so I can get really good at that. So before, what I would try to do is I would try to work on one client in the morning and one client in the afternoon, and then realize that it's called attention residue, where it's like it's actually kind of hard to switch from one to the other.
Yeah,
and so at that juncture, I decided to like just kind of focus on one. So that's what I do. So the first thing I do is I light my candle and I do my devotional and I do all that stuff. And then from there, I look at my project flow. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. At the beginning of every week, I tell the client, like, this is where I'm at. This is what I need from you, or this is what you're going to expect from me by the end of the week. And then I just plow through it. And I try to be offline as much as possible, but that doesn't work out very well. That doesn't work out very well.
It never works well for anyone.
Yeah. But I mean, I can see the days that I do it successfully. I see the amount of production is off the chain.
Yeah, I've noticed myself, like when I'm deep and focused in on a project, like 8 hours will go by and I'll be like, wow, I can't believe how much stuff I just got done.
Yeah, it's really cool. So like they did a research, forgot the 2 scientists that did this research, but they followed a lot of people around, and this was done in the 80s, so they had pagers. Okay, so people are people and facts don't change. So whatever. So anyway, so people had beepers, and like what they did is that they pinged the people throughout the whole entire day going like, what do you feel right now? What are you doing? And what do you feel? And they did this for like an extended amount of time. And over the course of time, they realized that people were more satisfied doing deep work than actually relaxing, because at that point, relaxing, they were stressed out. Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so what they ended up discovering was that even if the shallow work is fun and harmless, it's still less satisfying. And I'm just noticing that this week on like this template stuff, like it's very shallow. It's not innovative. You know what I mean? Like
it's not the fun part of the project.
No, it's not. And so like this week, even though I've gotten a lot done, it's like when I was sketching and ideating, and like that was way more fulfilling than this is. This is still fun, but anyway, so all of that, no idea where it's rambling to, but yeah, those distractions, like even though they're fun, they actually tear away from our satisfaction. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
it's you're 100% right. That's
Cal Newport is 100% right.
Yeah, But you're quoting him, so it also makes you 100% right.
Yes.
Kind of a joke question, but maybe not. Have you ever tried to estimate how much paper you go through in a year?
Oh, golly gee willikers.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured the answer would be.
Just the fact that you thought you could answer that is amazing.
I didn't expect a real answer to this question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if anything, I'm embarrassed about how much we recycle. I mean, I'm glad that we recycle it, but holy granola, like there is so many scraps left over. And I even have a huge scrap bucket that my 3 kids will come in and they'll make things out of.
Oh, that's smart.
But it's like if I kept all of it, like they could cover their whole room 3 times. Like it's just crazy how much gets left over. And it's just like little things that like you can't do anything with. You know what I mean? It's like,
see, I would never want to throw something like that away just because it looks cool.
Oh, dude, there's so many times where it's like the cutout pieces. I'm like what's left over, the negative space.
It's like the negative space, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, the negative space is so cool. And then I sit there and start taking photos of the negative space. And just like, oh, this is not the project.
I'm the same way. Is there anything else about your process or anything about what you do and how you do it that you want to share? Or even other like examples? Do you have any other physical examples to show?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. It's ridiculous. Oh, let's see. These are so random. So I think the thing about paper crafting, so a lot of times when people do paper crafting, what they do is that they see like, okay, what do I see and how can I make that out of paper? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And while that is really cool, that's not necessarily what I do. What I do is like, how can I make this a cool idea and then illustrate it? So for instance, this is a shoe, but it's also a movie theater. And so this is his pair, but it's a store. And so, I'm not sharing my screen. I just accidentally, okay, yeah. So anyway, it's a pair of shoes. And this was for an article about like geofencing, which is something where it's like like Urban Outfitters does this, where it's like if you have their app, or anybody, a lot of people have it, but if you have their app and you go into their store, you automatically gets a pops up going like, hey, glad you're here today. Here's a special coupon for you. Michael has it as well. Michael's have it. So what I really like to do is not necessarily just like make something that's like representative of what's out there. Like I like to try to figure out like, well, how can I make something that is unique and different, that speaks to the story, the narrative of whatever thing that we're trying to create or communicate.
Awesome. So we've been chatting for about an hour now, and I think I learned a lot of your process and the things that you do, but I think we should be thinking this more as like the prelude to your workshop that you're going to be doing in April, on April 6th in Fairfield, New Jersey, called Paper, Lights, Action, a paper crafting and lighting and photography workshop. Want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So, okay, first off, can we beta this really quick? I was thinking about adding yay to the end of it, because if it's paper, lights, action, yay, it's play.
Ooh, okay.
Wouldn't that be cool? So like you're coming to play.
We'll get Will to fix that.
No. I was just like, I think this could be really cool. But anyway, no, I'm sort of kind of joking. But anyway, so this is really cool. I'm really excited about it. I've done it with some designers in Tallahassee, Florida, which is really exciting. And then we have a couple more prospects scattered throughout the United States as well. So, but what happens in this, it's a 3-hour workshop. And the first a little bit is an introduction of the process, which I've already kind of told you guys about, but you're going to see more visual examples of that. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we're going to go into actually making a paper craft. So I have done all the hard work for you. So meaning the template, like what we're going to make, the template, cutting out all the paper.
You did all the measuring for us?
Yes, I did all the math for you.
Thank you.
So that's done. So really, and you don't even have to come with any supplies. Just bring your laptop if you have Photoshop.
Awesome.
But I will have the glue for you. I have the cutting boards, cutting knives, like all that stuff. So anyway, sounds like we're going into the kitchen, but yeah, I have all that stuff. So we spend the first like hour and a half, like just making this, and you'll learn basic things, like all the different kind of tabs. You'll learn all the different kind of, like the ways that we score things, how to put different things kind of together, different glue techniques. And there's also a piece where you get to customize as well. And then from there, what we try to do is that we try to dim the lights, and I give you guys flashlights. And then from there, you use like tissue papers. I'll teach you how to modify the light. So a lot of times people will take a photo and they're like, it's not really doing what I want it to do. Well, you have to figure out, you have to understand light from a basic inherent perspective. And then from there, figure out what your modifiers are going to do. So we learn, so now that you have a subject to photograph, we learn that with flashes and like low light flashlights, and then a whole bunch of little modifier things. I'll have backgrounds for you. It's fun. And then so that's another hour, because what happens is that you team up with somebody, because it's not one of those things where it's like you can't hold your phone and you
only have two hands.
Yeah, you don't want to use your nose to hit the shutter button, like it just doesn't work. So it's like, yeah, you're going to definitely work with somebody there. So that normally takes about an hour. And then from there, we're going to retouch it together. So some of my most favorite, like go-to, paper like Photoshop like skills, I'll go over that. The action that I was talking about earlier of like what to do and how to bring those two pieces together, I'll break down what that action is, so you guys will have that in your back pocket if you ever need it. And then after that, like you guys generally have left with a well done paper craft and photo that you lit.
That's awesome.
And it's just really exciting because people it's just amazing. Like you guys, like people are so creative and they just see it from like, it's just, I'm always blown away.
That's great. I know, I'm looking forward to it. And one more time, that is Paper Lights Action Maybe Yay, April 6th in Fairfield, New Jersey. If you want to get more info on that, you guys at home, you go to UnitedDesignGuild.com and get your ticket to that. It's definitely going to be a fun event. Yeah. So, Alicia, where can we find you on the social medias?
Okay, wow. This is going to be, I'm so sorry. This is confusing for people. Okay, so you guys can find me at Alicja Colon on Twitter. So that's AlicjaColon. So Alicia Colon on Twitter. But then you can also go to Thrice Studio on Instagram. And you'll find me there as well. Also, if you go to Dribble, Alicia Colon as well. So
awesome, thank you. Thanks for being here today and explaining all that. That was super fun, and hopefully everyone here watching is going to join the workshop later in April. And
it'd be great.
I think that's a wrap. I've been Mike from the United Design Guild, and this has been Alicia. Do you have any last parting words for us?
Thank you guys so much for just making this opportunity for people. And I'm so excited to meet you guys. And I wonder if there's still going to be snow. Is there snow? I don't know how to.
In April, I hope not.
Not?
There
okay.
might be, but I hope not.
Okay.
It's anyone's guess these days.
Yeah, right. That's true. So, but thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Alicia. We'll take it away. So long, everyone.